Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay, I'm going to put my palms together and invite everyone to do the same as Miss Yap.
Should I start now?
Yes, please.
Okay. 恭请大德圣听，为此法会第一切众生，请转法轮，教导我们如何了生脱世，离苦得乐，殊成无生。Will the Sangha with great virtue, out of compassion, for the sake of this assembly and all living beings, please turn the wonderful Dharma will to teach us how to leave suffering and attain bliss and end birth and death and quickly realize non-birth.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Homage to the blessed, noble, and perfectly enlightened one. Namo sadanto suchetoye alahati sanmiao sanputoche. Wu shang shen shen wei miao fa. 百千万劫难遭遇，我今见闻得受持，愿解如来真实义。Supreme and wondrous Dharma, subtle and profound, rarely is encountered, even in a billion eons. But now we see and hear it and accept it reverently. May we truly understand the Buddha's actual meaning. Hello everyone, welcome to class number 24 of the Medicine Master Buddha lectures. And let me ask, how many of you all here just came from the other event where Shufu's really old, not old, very early disciple, Madalena Tam, was sharing her experiences with Shufu. There, do you all know about it? Or you can just type in the chat box if you want. Okay. Okay, so let's recite Medicine Master Buddha's name 7 times. Namo, quelling disasters, lengthening life, Medicine Master Buddha. 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 Medicine Master does come one. 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 Okay, so let me see. Chat box. Melinda and Lucy said they both just came from Madalena Tam's sharing about Shufu. Okay, let me bring up today's slides. Anything you want to share, Melinda or Lucy, about what you heard from Madalena? Okay, for those of you who are unaware, like Miss Yap, every day, not every day, every Saturday at, so California, our class begins at 5 o'clock. So 1 hour before, at California time 4 o'clock, which I think is what in Malaysia, Singapore, Hong Kong, is it 6 in the morning? Madalena Tam is sharing about her experiences having Shufu as a teacher. For those of you who do not know who Madalena is, Madalena took refuge with Shufu when she was really young. I don't remember if she was 12 or 16, but kind of around that age. And I think this must have been in the, let me see, in the 40s or 50s. And then she came, Shufu told her she was deciding whether to go to Australia or America for her education. And Shufu said, you should go to America. So when she came to the US, she started the first Buddhist lecture hall in Chinatown in San Francisco. And she was the one that invited Shufu to come to the US. So that's Madalena Tam. She's like, if you are in US, okay, if you are a disciple of Shufu, chances are she's your big sister. Yeah, kind of like that. Yeah. Anything interesting that you heard from Madalena, Melinda, or Lucy that is worth sharing? So, okay, so Melinda just typed in and says, after listening, she feels that we are very fortunate to cultivate right now and we have to work vigorously. Oh, that sounds like something Shufu would say, yeah. Okay. Okay, so before we begin, do we have any questions? I know Ron has a question that he typed into the chat box, and his question is, some monasteries like CDTB allow permanent plaques to be set up. What is the benefit for the laity to set up such a plaque? So we can answer Ron's question midway through today's class. Also, there's a question by who, let me see, I don't remember who asked this question, but it had to do with the Mangala Sutta. The Mangala Sutta is called the highest blessings, and I shall make some time to cover it in today's class as well. Anyone else has any questions or reflections to share since last week's class? Amitabha.
Hello.
Yes.
I asked a question on the Mangala Sutta. So in the meantime, I'm going to have a look at it. So I realized, Pastor, that this highest blessings, we have internal and external blessings. And then we realized that if we have to make an effort also to gain this blessing. And then I realized Sufu on the 11th vow, Sufu said that he will give us his blessing. So this is external blessing and internal blessing also. So I've realized that if we follow Shufu's 6 great principles, we'll be able to attain these blessings, internal and external. And then another thing is that Shufu divide our life in the 4 seasons or 80 years. 0 to 20, 20 to 40, 40 to 60, 60 to 80. So at which stage we have to start to learn. So in this way, I've realized that we have to practice we have to learn at what stage we begin, at what stage we are at the level.
Thank you. Actually, that's really good. This is how it should be. You all should be like Miss Chong. You ask questions about the Dharma, and then you investigate yourself, and you ponder about it, and then you come to your own conclusion. I have a class every Friday. It's called What Would Guanin Do? And it's started by a fellow Malaysian who's living in Georgia right now. Some of you might know her. Her name is Anne, and her mom is Mrs. Goh. Mrs. Goh and her husband, Mr. Goh, has been responsible for introducing a lot of people in Malaysia to Shufu. And so a lot of people, a huge grab of gratitude to Mr. Goh and Mrs. Goh. So, sometimes I talk too much and then I forget what I'm going to say. I had something to say about my class yesterday. I'm getting old. Okay, getting back on topic, Miss Chong. Oh, yes. So, okay, what I was telling them is everything that I share with you is not really the Dharma. What I'm sharing, the Buddha's teachings, what Shufu taught us, it only becomes Dharma when you make it your own. But what is making it your own? Like what Miss Chong did. Meaning what I'm sharing are just the theory, are just the principles, It is when you take it and you reflect back on your own experience about your own life. Which is why Shufu say everyone has their own sutra. You have to understand your own sutra. So when you do that and you use your own experiences in life to understand the principles of the sutra, then it becomes Dharma for you. I hope all of you can understand that. And what Ms. Chong said today is very interesting because it has to do with where we left off with Medicine Master Buddha's 10th vow, which is internal and external merit. Okay, what does internal and external merit is? What are they? How do you distinguish the difference between blessings and merit? Okay, so we're going to go there today. Let me share the screen so you can stop looking at the jellyfish in front of you. So since we are on the 10th vow, we're going to read it again. And then we can go on to the blessings, virtue, and awesome spiritual power of the Buddha. All right, so I'm going to put my palms together. So the 10th Great Vow. I vow that in a future life, when I attain Bodhi, I shall cause sentient beings who fall into the hands of the law and are bound, interrogated, whipped, fettered, imprisoned, sentenced to execution, or subjected to endless disasters, hardships, abuse, and humiliation, so that they are torn by grief and distress and suffering in body and mind, to obtain, upon hearing my name, liberation from all worry and suffering by means of my blessings, virtue, and awesome spiritual power. So Ms. Chong has, in her explanation of the Mangala Sutta, which we'll come to towards the end of today's lecture, we'll talk about the Mangala Sutta. And it's very important, it's a very important sutta. In fact, it's so important or significant and useful and practical that Theravada monks, like in Abhayagiri, I'm not sure if they recite it every single day, but it's in their daily recitation book. They have a daily recitation book, just like we have our recitation handbook. And I'm sure that they recite it at least once a week. That I'm fairly sure of. Okay, so last week we talked about we started talking about blessings. Okay, because Shufu always talks about he doesn't Shufu talks about blessings, but Shufu also talks about merit and virtue. And in the sutras, there's always merit and virtue. And Shufu always has merit and virtue together. So we looked at this, like merit. So in here, it says that merit are wholesome actions created by the performance of virtuous deeds, which result in the form of happiness in the future. So wholesome actions, that means wholesome karma. So you do something good, it results in something happening to you in the future that makes you happy. Okay, so that's what merit is. So merit is not just anything that you do. It has a positive outcome. But most interestingly is the next sentence. It says, this merit may be accumulated over many lifetimes and dedicated toward a specific outcome, such as a favorable rebirth for oneself or another, rebirth in the retinue of the future Buddha Maitreya, or the achievement of Buddhahood for the welfare of all sentient beings. And this is, I want you to remember this, because I'm going to tell a story later about when the Buddha, before he, Shakyamuni Buddha, in a lifetime before, and he did something, and he actually dedicated the merit of that act to becoming a Buddha. So it is in relation to this. So how do we see this merit? It means when we do transference, for example, you know, when at the end of something, we do this, and then we do it. We, after the end of our practice, and then we transfer it to the Pure Land, for example. So the Pure Land practice says we have to how you say, transfer merit and virtue to the Pure Land. In other words, meaning the reason you are doing it is, as in this sentence, you are creating the merit so that you can end up in the Pure Land. So that is the wholesome action part. You are intentionally creating this karma for a future rebirth in the Pure Land. Okay, so this is the textbook definition of what merit is. Okay, what is virtue? Okay, virtue in for those people who would like to know what the Sanskrit word is Vimala. Sounds like a name, Vimala, and is also described as a kind of moral restraint. I think that's a very elegant word, moral restraint, or precepted behavior. It means that you you know some things are not good, and you withhold yourself. You don't allow yourself to do those things. Why? Because if you do, it comes in the form of unhappiness in the future. So there's a restraint your behaviors are controlled. It's not wild behavior. There's an interesting thing about virtue, which is when do you perfect your virtue on your way to becoming a Buddha? It is said that bodhisattvas on the second, or also known as immaculate ground, they perfect virtue. And so from this, why don't I read the sentence? It says, perfected by bodhisattvas on the second or immaculate ground, it is said that from this bhumi onward, bhumi means ground. Bhumi is Sanskrit for ground, which in a lot of our Malay words in Malaysia come from Sanskrit. So bhumi, in Malay means world, the earth. So it says from this bhumi onward, the bodhisattva is untainted by killing, stealing, sexual misconduct, lying, derisive speech, harsh speech, senseless prattle, covetousness. Covetousness is wanting things that you don't have, or let me see, did I get it right? Covetousness. Yeah, let me see. Maybe you have to find out yourself. Don't rely on what I'm saying. Harmful intent or wrong views, even during dreams. Can you imagine that? Even in dreams, you hold the precepts perfectly. And then the bodhisattva performs the 10 virtues of protecting life, giving gifts, maintaining sexual ethics, speaking truthfully, speaking harmoniously, speaking kindly, speaking sensibly, has no attachments, has helpful intent and right views, without the slightest stain of a conception of self. So everything that the bodhisattva does is not selfish. He doesn't do anything to benefit himself from this point on. So can you imagine? Even in your dreams, your karmic seeds are so strong, they're so pure, that in a dream state, when people are usually confused, the bodhisattva never will not even break the precepts in a dream. I have a very funny personal story regarding precepts and dreams, which I did not. I just remembered this story. I didn't plan on telling it. When I first started taking the precepts, it was very hard for me because to be a vegetarian, food was very important, and I really like to eat meat and eggs and harming life basically. And one of my favorite dishes was something called bakute. So every Malaysian knows what is bakute. What bakute is I think the easiest way to put it is a herbal soup made from pork and the bones of pork, pig bones. Yeah, it's a dish that has a lot of how would I say? I remember fondly when my family was living in Klang when I was very young, in kindergarten age. It was a family ritual where we would get up very early, and my father would have his favorite bakute shops that we would visit on different weekends. So I have very fond memories of going out with my family and my father and eating that dish. So after I took the precepts, in in one of my dreams, I remember in my dream thinking that I wanted to eat this dish. Okay, but interestingly enough, I also remembered in my dream that I took the precepts. And I remember very distinctively, because when I woke up, I was very amazed. I remember telling myself, oh, I can't eat any pork, but yet I want to eat this dish. What can I do? So in my dream, I was so greedy for meat that what I wanted to do was to take a knife and cut off my leg, like cut off a piece of meat from my thigh, so that I could still have this dish. And then I woke up. Yeah. So not quite like a bodhisattva on the second ground, but because a bodhisattva on the second ground has non-attachment, so it's no longer attached to a dish like bakute. Yeah. Okay. So that's my personal. Yeah. So merit and virtue. Last week someone brought up the sixth patriarch. I think it was Hilda. So what has the sixth patriarch have to say about merit and virtue? And this is the from here on we'll also go into the difference between is blessings merit. Okay, so sixth patriarch says, inwardly your mind humble is merit, outwardly your behavior respectful, this is virtue. Okay, so that's what the sixth patriarch says. And then he also says people who cultivate merit and virtue harbor no thoughts of belittling others. Instead, they show respect to all. So if you are doing anything and you are in your mind, you're thinking about all the merit and virtue you're going to get, ask yourself, are you being respectful? Okay. And then he also says, if you're always slighting others in your heart and are constantly self-centered, then you have no merit, meaning you're selfish. Not only are you selfish, which is self-centered, but you look down on other people. So sixth patriarch says you have no merit at all. So he also says, if your own nature is vain and false, you lack any virtue. It is only because they consider themselves to be great that they always belittle others. So the sixth patriarch brings it back to your character. It says before you even talk about merit and virtue, You know, before you even talk about like what you're doing, the deeds that you're doing, he said, look at your character. Are you always looking down on people in your heart? You always have thoughts that are no good about other people, finding fault with people? And are you always selfish, looking at only doing something if you can benefit out of it? And if you don't get any benefit but other people benefit, then you probably won't do it. And he says, in this case, you have no merit and you have no virtue. Okay? All right. Let's move on to the next slide. And he also says, okay, and then now we're going to blessings and the difference between blessings and merit. He says, good and wise friends, cultivating continuously in thought after thought is merit. And biased, sincere, straightforward mind is virtue. So in thought after thought, if say, for example, you are reciting the Buddha's name and you're not thinking about what bakute, or you're not thinking about how other people are so stupid and how people should be treating you better, blah, 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 then he says that's merit. And a biased, sincere, straightforward mind, what is that like? When you help someone, you just help. You don't think about, maybe if I help this person because he's rich, then maybe one day I can ask him for a favor. It's not a calculating mind. All right? And then the second thing he says is, good and wise friends, merit and virtue must manifest from within your own nature. Do not seek for them by making donations and offerings. That is the difference between blessings and merit and virtue. So he's giving us a clue right now, the difference between blessings and merit. So what does that mean? He says, merit and virtue must manifest from within your own nature. Do not seek for them by making donations and offerings. So I have a question. It's like, okay, but if merit is doing good deeds, then if we don't make donations and offerings, then how do we create merit? Does anyone have an answer? Okay, keep that in mind, okay? If you are thinking about what's the difference between merit and virtue, or is there no difference? Okay. Now we go on to what Bodhidharma has to say. Okay, Bodhidharma and Six Petrak are very similar because they are chant masters, and chant masters like to always bring it back to the extreme. I wouldn't say extreme, bring it back to the middle way and use emptiness as a way to break our attachments. Okay, so Bodhidharma was asked this question. It says, throughout the sutras, the Buddha tells mortals, which is people like us, they can achieve enlightenment by performing such meritorious works as building monasteries, casting statues, burning incense, scattering flowers, lighting eternal, okay, this is a typo, it should be eternal lamps, meaning you light lamps or oil lamps, okay, practicing all 6 periods of the day and night, walking around stupas, observing fasts, and worshipping. But if beholding the mind includes all other practices, then such works as this would appear redundant. Okay, so what is this question all about? This question came about because Bodhidharma is probably telling the monks or a group of lay people about the benefits of sitting in chant, which is beholding the mind. Okay, the second last line, it says beholding the mind. That means sitting in chant so that you can break through all ignorance and seeing your own self-nature. So Bodhidharma is talking about chant. So someone is, I don't know if it's challenging Bodhidharma, it sounds like it, because someone is saying, but the Buddha says, he says, the Buddha says that, you achieve enlightenment by performing meritorious works, like building monasteries, you cast statues, you burn incense, you scatter flowers, things that you do when you come to a temple. You bring flowers as offerings, you burn incense at home, we burn incense every day at Berkeley Monastery. You know, you practice all 6 periods of the day and night, meaning you be mindful, like reciting the Buddha's name, we circumambulate. Sometimes we don't eat, like you observing fast, like the when you take the 8 precepts, for example, or the Bodhisattva precepts. And worshipping means bowing. What this question means by worshipping is bowing. So this person is asking Bodhidharma. He says, you know, this is what the Buddha says. Okay. So what did Bodhidharma explain in return? Bodhidharma said, the sutras of the Buddha contain countless metaphors. What are metaphors? Metaphors is when you say one thing but you mean another. Okay. So it says, because mortals have shallow minds and don't understand anything deep. Okay, he's not looking down on people. Basically, he is comparing the Buddha's wisdom to people like ourselves. Okay, so he's just making a point. It says the Buddha used the tangible to represent the sublime. What is the sublime here? One of the clues is tangible. Tangible are things that we can understand. So sublime here would probably mean something that is just beyond what we comprehend right now, which is why we have the teachings to make us understand, to make us be able to get to the point where we can understand. So that's why it's called sublime. It says people who seek blessings by concentrating on external works instead of internal cultivation are attempting the impossible. So this is a huge clue. It says people who seek blessings by concentrating on external works instead of internal cultivation are attempting the impossible. Okay, so that's something very important. Okay, external and internal, because there lies the key between blessings and merit. Okay, so let's move on to the next slide where Bodhidharma explains more. Okay, so Bodhidharma said, the Buddha wanted worldly people to think of worship as expressing humility and subduing the mind. Okay, so what I did is I have selected Bodhidharma's explanation on bowing. So when you see the word worship, it means you bow to the Buddha. Okay, so I'll read everything and then I'll explain. So it says, we are on the second line, he says, so he told them to prostrate their bodies to show their reverence, to let the external express the internal, to harmonize essence and form. Those who fail to cultivate the inner meaning and concentrate instead on the outward expression never stop indulging in ignorance, hatred, and evil while exhausting themselves to no avail. They can deceive others with postures, remain shameless before sages, and vain before mortals, but they never escape the wheel, much less achieve any merit. Okay, so to explain this, Bodhidharma is saying the Buddha taught us to bow as a way to be humble and as a way to subdue the mind. Why do we need to subdue the mind? Because our ego gets in the way. What prevents us from transforming our habits is usually a sense of looking at ourselves as I'm already really good, that I have no bad habits. You know, other people behave worse than me. I am a good example of what it means to be a Buddhist. So thoughts like that make you blind to your own faults. So the Buddha wanted us to use bowing as a way to subdue the mind, because when you bow, it has a wonderful effect on subduing the ego. And when that happens, then we are more capable of acknowledging our own faults. So Bodhidharma said, so bowing is a way to show their reverence, to let the external express the internal, to harmonize essence and form. So essence is outside, essence is internal and form is external. So he goes on to explain, he says, those who fail to cultivate the inner meaning and concentrate instead on the outward expression never stop indulging in ignorance, hatred, and evil. So basically what he's saying is, combined with what the sixth Petra is saying, my understanding of the difference between what makes something a blessing and what makes something merit lies in your mind. So when you do something wholesome, okay, say like you, or something wholesome, okay, say you offer food to a beggar who needs food, okay, that's a very wholesome act. You know, you are helping someone in need. The difference between blessings and that makes it a blessing or makes it merit is how you see yourself. If in your heart, your only wish is to benefit the person, then you fall in the category of merit. Especially if, like in the first slide, you dedicate, you say, oh, may this wholesome deed enable me, I transfer to the Pure Land. Meaning you do it with the Pure Land in mind. That's definitely in merit territory. But if you do it and you want to boast to people, say, look at what I did. You know, you do it as a show because people are watching. So you do it because you want people to think that you are very generous, that you have a very kind heart. Or you do it, you want to be famous. Or if you're a politician or a businessman, you call a press conference and you make a big deal out of helping people so that everyone knows what a great person you are. Then with that kind of mind, you fall into the category of blessings. You will still get a, there is still a karmic effect, but it's not considered merit. Okay? Does that make sense to people? So it doesn't mean you, like the extreme, you don't do any acts of generosity, helping people, helping spread the Dharma at all. But as you do that, you have to be mindful on your intention or motivation behind what you're doing. All right? Okay, so that will make the difference between blessings and merit. Okay, so Ms. Yap has a question about what is walking around stupas currently advised. Well, there is in the okay, first let's start from the basics. What's a stupa? A stupa is usually traditionally a four-sided structure. At the base is four-sided, that means it's square, and then on top, the pictures of the stupas I've seen are round, and then it has like a pointed head or like a pyramid kind of structure. Different cultures will have different architectures on stupas, but usually contains a sharira. A sharira is a relic either of the Buddha, or it could be a sutra, something that people attach importance to in the Dharma. So a stupa could also say contain the robe and the bowl of a very famous monk, for example. And so there is a practice, like if you have taken the Bodhisattva precepts, it says that when you encounter a stupa and you circumambulate a stupa, you always have your right shoulder facing the stupa. So that means you circumambulate clockwise. You walk in a clockwise direction. When you circumambulate a stupa, you are supposed to be very mindful. It's a meditative exercise. So that's commonly what known as circumambulating a stupa. All right, I hope that answers your question. Okay, let's move on. So I hope everyone knows the difference between blessings and merit. The act is the same. Okay, outwardly, the form, you're doing the same thing. But inwardly, the intention, the heart, is what makes it a blessing or a merit. Okay, all right. So if you remember the 10th vow, the 10th vow was Medicine Master Buddha vowing that he will use his blessings, his virtue, and his 10 powers to save people. Okay, like how Ms. Chong said that Shufu, one of his vows is to share or use his blessings for us. That would be what a bodhisattva or Buddha's vows would be. The reason they accumulate blessings is because of living beings. They want to use blessings to make us happy. Oh, yeah. Before we go on to these 10 powers of the Buddha, Shufu also says that virtue, he says virtue is invincible. You can't really see virtue. It's an inner strength, like what Sixth Petrarch calls, he says the mind unmoving, that's virtue. What is that like? Someone takes $1 million in gold, puts it in front of you and say, this is yours, and your mind is still. Your mind doesn't go, wow, that's mine. What can I buy with it? Oh, I can afford. Your mind doesn't move. Sixth Petrarch says that's virtue. So Shufu says virtue is invisible. Yeah, you can't see it. And Shufu also says that virtue is like a sense of shame, a fear of being of blame. You don't want to do something wrong and stupid, you know. So remember we had moral restraint. Yeah, so that's virtue. Okay, now let's go on to let me see, 15 minutes. Okay, why don't we do 10 powers of the Buddha next week? Okay, let's do 10 powers of the Buddha next week. Let me see. Melinda has a question. Is stupas mean temple? No, not necessarily. Stupa and a monastery are two different things. You usually, some places have stupas inside a temple. Yeah, like in a temple ground, then you have a stupa. Yeah, something like that. Okay, so what I wanted to do is go to the Mangala Sutta, but before I get to the Mangala Sutta, let me find it. Mangala Sutta, Mangala Sutta. Oh, it's not showing on screen. Okay, what you are seeing quickly flash across your screen is what I have in store for you next week, and that's the 11th vow. Okay, so before we go to the Mangala Sutta, the Maha-mangala Sutta, to answer Ron's question about permanent plaques, what is the benefit for the laity to set up such a plaque? Well, Ron, one way of looking at what a plaque is, it is a way of, say for your parents or people that you care for, it is a way of showing that you still think about them, that your care for them does not stop even though physically they're not here anymore, meaning you are still mindful of them. So it could be your parents, it could be a family member, it could be someone that you care for. So a plaque, usually in most monasteries, when you set up a plaque, there's also you make a donation to put the plaque up. So when you make that donation, the donation is done in the person's name, usually. So meaning when you put up the plaque is an expedient as a physical placeholder for your mind and your heart. That's number one. Number two, it enables you to do generosity and transfer the blessings, the merit and the virtue to the person that you are being mindful of. So that's one way. You could say that, like in certain Asian cultures where you honor, not just Asian, but there are many cultures around the world where they have festivals and they have their own ways of celebrating ancestors, where they are always mindful of the ancestors. You could say that the plaque has similar, what's the word I'm trying to look for? It's fairly similar to that too, although not 100%. Okay, so what happens when you are mindful of your elders? Well, number one, it gives you a groundness. It tells you where you come from. It reminds you of who you are. And if your connection back to your family is wholesome, it helps you maintain wholesomeness in your everyday actions as well. And let me see, I wasn't prepared to answer this. We can do a whole class, you know, on the benefits of plaques and being filial, the importance of filial. It also helps you be mindful of what's the word? The kindness that you have received. So when you are grateful for the kindness that you have received from people, then it helps you be motivated to repay that kindness. And that's a big thing for monks and nuns in the Mahayana tradition. And I think Theravada too. I don't know. I haven't investigated Theravada. But like, for example, myself, one of my main, when I read what Shufu said about leaving home, he said it's one of the highest ways, one of the best ways you can repay your parents' kindness. So that's what's that's one benefit of being mindful of your parents, for example. So there's a lot of, connected to the plaque. If you understand what it means, there's a lot of benefits that help in this current moment keep you practicing. Yeah. Or what do people think? Do people have any thoughts about putting up plaques? Anyone? No one has put up a plaque before?
Shifu, is it the same with the plaque that we have at home that we offer joss sticks daily?
Yes and no. Yes, in the sense that if you are mindful of your ancestors in that way, yes. But having a plaque in a monastery, like in a Buddhist temple, brings other internal commitments that are related to Dharma and not just culture.
So is it encouraging to have a plaque in the temple as well as the home-based?
Yeah, I guess if you do it for the right reasons and yeah, I think it is good.
Thanks, Shifu.
Yeah. Okay, so Ms. Yap, I think you know this. Shofu we reserve the term Shofu for our master. So you can just call me Fa Shi or JinHe Shi.
Oh, sorry for the
No, you don't have to apologize because you didn't know. Yeah. Okay, so Julie says in her experience, plaques are very effective. Do you want to elaborate, Julie? Next week? Okay. I shall remember. Okay, there's one story I wanted to tell regarding plaques. Who did I hear this from? Maybe Ramahang Shua is the one. Plaques also have an invincible effect on the people, especially plaques, rebirth plaques. That means plaques that we put up for people who have already passed on. In general, there are two kinds of plaques. You can put up plaques for people who are around, like yourself, or people like family members who are still around, and you can put up plaques for people who have passed on. So there are stories about the effect of putting up a plaque and how it has benefited the spirit, for lack of a better word, of that person who have moved on. Yeah, whether it's a result of the plaque itself or the sincerity of the person who puts it up, and the merit generated through whatever generosity of the person. I'm not sure. I think it's a combination. All those things are experience that really help the heart bring out that sincerity. Yeah, I think they all play a role. And if anyone has personal experiences of, I know one of the story is after a plaque was put up, someone had a dream and their relative was very happy. I don't know the specifics of the story, I'm very sorry. But yeah, like that. And I think it had something to do with using the plaque or the person as a way to step up into the light. Yeah. Okay, so Chui says that having a plaque is just an act, but the person who put this and participate as a form of practice is even more important. Yes. Basically, a plaque is more for the living. And Ru Chan says, after submitting 2 plaques at noon today, I somehow felt great, happy, and meditation seemed more smooth. And the plaques at home are not comparable to ones at temple. Yep, that's what Ru Chan says. Okay, let's go to the Maha-mangala Sutta. What is the Maha-mangala Sutta, or also known as the Mangala Sutta? Before we recite, you have to know the background. What is the background? The background is one day someone woke up, had nothing better to do, and started discussing about what is a good sign or a bad sign, good omen or bad omen. What is a good omen or bad omen? I was just speaking to one of our lay people from Penang. Penang is a northern state in Malaysia the other day, and he was involved in an accident many months ago. So that's a bad omen. But in Malaysia, people are very superstitious. So what does that mean? So people take signs to be, hey, maybe I can get something out of this. Maybe there's a good omen behind the bad omen. So they try to, how do you say? Okay, I'll just tell the story. So what this person did was he bought the lottery based on the numbers, the license plate, the numbers on his license plate of his motorcycle. Okay, so that's an example of trying to distinguish between good omen and bad omen. So the story goes with how the Buddha spoke this sutra is, so they started saying, oh, when you wake up and you see like a white bird, there's a good omen. When you hear a baby cry, there's a bad omen. Okay, I'm just making things up. Okay, I'm not quoting the sutra right now, just to give you an idea. So then someone else will say, oh, yes, that's very true. And then, when you wake up, you see a bird flying above you, there's a bad omen. And then when you see a cow, there's a good omen. And then everyone started having all different ideas about what is a good omen, what's a bad omen. Another way to look at it is being superstitious. Like people tell me you can't cut your fingernails at night, or don't walk under a ladder. Okay, things like that. Okay, or it's bad luck to break a mirror, 7 years bad luck, and to have a black cat cross your path, that's bad luck too. Okay, so this conversation was so apparently so intriguing and interesting that not just the humans were talking about it, but it went up the heavens. The people, the gods in the heavens started discussing, yeah, these are good omens, these are bad omens, and so on, until it reached the Brahma heavens. And Brahma heavens are like really high up in the heavenly realms. So Shakra thought to himself, he said, everyone has so many different opinions about what good and bad omens are. So he says, only one person who knows. Who is that? The Buddha. So it is said that the Shakra went to the Buddha and asked the Buddha about what is a good omen and what is a bad omen. And because of that question, the Buddha spoke this Maha-mangala Sutra. So there are different versions of how the Buddha spoke this sutra. That's one version. And then that version, the Buddha talked about, is recorded as a Jatakatu. The Buddha talked about what happened before. But in this version, it is slightly different. In this version, as we shall see, it was asked by a different Deva and not Shakra. Okay, so we can recite this, and I actually have the, let me find my document. I actually have, oh, where's my file? Okay, I have the version that's used by Abhayagiri monks, the Theravada monks at Abhayagiri Monastery. Let me see. Okay. Increase the size. Oh, no, too much. Okay, so let me explain a bit before we start reading it. When you see a line, you pull the sound. Thus, instead of thus have I heard, thus I have heard. Okay, and then when you see a arrow pointing down, the note goes down one pitch. And when you see an arrow pointing up, the note goes up one pitch. Let me see if I can do it. I'm not really good at chanting this, but if you go to Abhayagiri Monastery, this is what it would sound like, or what I'm trying to make it sound like. It would go like this. Thus I have heard that the Blessed One was staying at Savatthi, residing at the Jeta's Grove. In Anathapindika's park, then in the dark of the night, a radiant deva. Okay, I can't really do it well. I'm just going to read it, and then we can talk about it. So, okay, so I'm going to continue. Then in the dark of the night, a radiant deva illuminated all Jeta's grove. She bowed down low before the Blessed One, then standing to one side, she said, okay, I'm going to scroll a bit first. Devas are concerned for happiness and ever long for peace. The same is true for humankind. What then are the highest blessings? And then the Buddha replied. Buddha says, avoiding those of foolish ways, associating with the wise, and honoring those worthy of honor, these are the highest blessings. Living in places of suitable kinds, with the fruits of past good deeds, and guided by the rightful way, these are the highest blessings. Accomplished in learning and craftsman skills, with discipline, highly trained, and speech that is true and pleasant to hear, these are the highest blessings. Okay. Providing for mother and father support, and cherishing family, and ways of work that harm no being, these are the highest blessings. Generosity and a righteous life, offering help to relatives and kin, and acting in ways that leave no blame, these are the highest blessings. Steadfast in restraint and shunning evil ways, avoiding intoxicants that dull the mind, and heedfulness in all things that arise, these are the highest blessings. Okay, there's a bit more. Okay, from the top. Respectfulness and of humble ways, contentment and gratitude, and hearing the Dharma frequently taught, these are the highest blessings. Patience and willingness to accept one's faults, seeing venerated seekers of the truth, and sharing often the words of Dharma, these are the highest blessings. Ardent, committed to the holy life, seeing for oneself the noble truths and the realization of Nibbana, these are the highest blessings. Although involved in worldly tasks, unshaken the mind remains, and beyond all sorrow, spotless, secure, these are the highest blessings. Okay, we are here. They who live by following this path know victory wherever they go, and every place for them is safe. These are the highest blessings. Okay, so time is up. If you are wondering why we are doing the Mangala Sutta in a class of Medicine Master Buddha, it's because it's in the title. Our class is called Buddhism 101. What is Buddhism 101? it means an introduction to basic Buddhist principles. So we have chosen the Medicine Master Sutra as a platform to do that. And it also means that when people have questions, especially really good questions like on the Mangala Sutta, I get very excited because we get to do something that is related and helpful to our practice and also to the Medicine Master Sutra. Yeah. So now that we have this, I can on the WhatsApp group, I will send you the link to this sutra so we can you can read it on your own. And if we really want to, we can spend some time in next week's class regarding to talk about this sutra. So next week, what we're going to do is we're going to go to the 11th sutra, and the 11th sutra. We can talk about the relationship of practitioners and food, which is very interesting. Okay, so let me see. Look at the chat. Ru Chang says, plaques are one of the greatest ways and effective ways to repay parents' kindness, especially the rebirth plaques. You are asking the Dharma Masters to help relieve them from reincarnation suffering, sending them to Amitabha Pure Land. The power effectiveness of the plaques are related directly to the level of cultivation merit of the Sangha members and participators in that temple. Yeah, that's interesting where you get that from, Ruchang. If you can share, that would be interesting. And then Catherine says, can we have the highest blessing in our WhatsApp group? Okay, I'm going to send you that. Yeah, anyone have any questions before we transfer merit? Yes.
Just wondering, when you put permanent, somebody asked me this question. When you put permanent plaque in one of the monasteries, the RBA monasteries, do we still need to do the normal plaque whenever there's a Dharma assembly?
I would. Yeah, because every time you put a plaque, it's like a, how you say, it's like a renewal of your helping you be mindful. So if you are able to put up a plaque, I would highly encourage people to put up a plaque. But don't just put up a plaque and forget about it. You know, the plaque is a physical representation of your how you say of your sincerity as well. So there's two forms. One form, according to Ruchang, is the like the Dharma Masters, the role that we play through our ceremony, our daily ceremonies, and all that. And interestingly enough, how you say, like in Berkeley Monastery, we had someone living here before. At night, got really scared because he said, "Oh, he can hear all kinds of sounds from our rebirth hall," and it's like, yeah, that's. I mean, that's the rebirth hall, and you put up a plaque for people who have passed on. So it's like, duh. Of course, there will be like living beings there. Someone said that. I saw someone say. Hold on, let me find it. Someone, I thought I saw. Okay, Jane says that I heard from Dharma Master before that spirits cannot enter the Buddha hall unless their names are on the plaques. I don't know about that. You would have to go back to the monk or nun who said that. Yeah. Yeah. So I would. Yeah. Yes.
Just for my own information, if we put a plaque of our ancestor in the temple, does it stays there permanently, or is there a time frame?
It depends. There are different types of plaques. Sometimes it's for 49 days. Sometimes it's only for the duration of the Fa Hui, if like a ceremony. session going on, like 3 days or 7 days. They also have permanent plaques or long-term plaques, like a year. It all depends. There's no different monasteries and different events. They would have different
Arrangement.
Yeah, arrangements.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so from all these people hearing, like, what hearing from this monk or that monk, this monk said that monk said this, I just want to remind everyone about the 4 great references. What are the 4 great references? The 4 great references are the Buddha in his final sutta to us, in the Maha-parinibbana Sutta. His advice for his own monks and disciples about listening to the sutra. He said, whether you hear from one monk, a group of monks, whether they are really learned, established monks, or and they all say that either they hear from the Buddha or they listen to the sutras, and this is their understanding of how the Buddha's teachings are. He said, basically, he doesn't want us to just accept things blindly. He wants us to find out for ourselves. He said, go back to the Vinaya and go back to the sutras. Sutras are the Buddha's teachings. Vinaya are the is the precepted the discipline laid down by the Buddha, and he says use that as your guide. So as we share, like, this monk said that, that monk said this, like, even all these things that I'm telling you right now, don't blindly accept. The Buddha said, don't blindly accept. He said, don't blindly reject either. Don't be have skeptical doubt that harms yourself, that prevents you from learning. But anything you hear that you are not quite sure, he says, go back to the teachings and investigate for yourself. All right? Okay, it's time to transfer merit. Okay, let me change slides. Okay. And everything else in the chat box, I'll read through after today's event. And if there's any questions, either through WhatsApp or next week class, we can talk about it. Okay, I'm going to put my palms together. May every living being, our minds as one and radiant with light, share the fruits of peace with hearts of goodness, luminous and bright. If people hear and see how hands and hearts can find in giving unity, may their minds awake to great compassion, wisdom, and to joy. May kindness find reward. May all who sorrow leave their grief and pain. May this boundless light dispel the darkness of their endless night. Because our hearts are one, this world of pain turns into paradise. May all become compassionate and wise. May all become compassionate and wise. All right, everyone. Thank you for joining us. And today it was very good. We had questions. People are very active in the chat box. Yeah, that's really good. Okay, Amitofo, and see you next week. Bye-bye.